All right. Well, good afternoon. It's Monday, March 23rd. This is Fine with Scott Lewis. We're back. Hope you all had a nice weekend in this new reality we live in. I had a pretty good weekend. My dog, I don't know about your if you all have pets or not. I have a dog, and I swear this is the best life she's ever had. She's getting a lot of attention, a lot of great, experiences, and I'm sure yours are too. I imagine all the dogs are calling each other, wondering why everything has suddenly gotten so good for them lately. So we're following everything deeply. I'm going to run through everything. I just saw a question about Chula Vista. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm going to double check. Everything's happening so fast. It's hard even for me to keep track of a lot of things going on. So let's get into this. I wanted to first read. I reached out to a friend of mine. I met a man a few years ago named Mario Calabresi. He's the former editor of La Repubblica newspaper in Italy, the largest newspaper in Italy, and really great guy. I got to know him pretty well. He left last year his job as the editor of that paper. And I wanted to ask him a couple of things. One is just what it was like in Italy now, and I wanted some hope. I wanted to hear from him how things are going, and if there's as I put it, a light at the end of the tunnel. He wrote back and he said, no, there's no light yet, which was not what I had hoped to hear. But he did write something I thought would be really interesting for you all. I'm going to read it. He said that the water in Venice, you can see the fish. Don't forget the wildlife. It's beautiful. There's some of these silver lining issues. And he wrote this. He said, those of you who still have time, don't waste time. In the blink of an eye, protective face masks, gloves, hand sanitizers become a rare and unobtainable commodity. No network technician will set foot into anyone's home in Italy right now to deal with faulty internet connections. We thought we had consigned paper, like newsprint, to the 20th century wastebasket, but now we understand just how essential it was just to write on and to share and let children draw on. He says, again, this is Mario Calabresi. He's a former editor of La Repubblica in Italy. He said, for too many days, the first few when the virus was already in our midst, we could still go out. We thought it was rude not to shake hands with friends and colleagues, that keeping our distance was insulting, that we could still down a beer, share that last pizza, have another workout at the gym. The sooner we understood that our lifestyles have to change profoundly, the sooner we could have avoided mistakes. In the first week, there was a storming of the supermarket because everyone was panic buying water, pasta, and toilet paper. So I guess that's not just a American thing. But what was missing was flour and butter. People are now baking cakes and a lot of biscuits, he said, in Italy. It was a moving letter. If you'd like me to post it all, I will. It was a great reminder of just how far this has changed things in places like Italy, and it seems like we're on that track. I also this week spoke with some friends in Spain. They said there's a €200 fine for people who are caught in the streets in Spain these days without a valid essential reason to be out. We have not hit that place yet in this state. I think it's important to distinguish. We are not in a shelter-in-place situation. We are in a stay-at-home guidance situation, which means we can go out for pharmacy gas, we can walk the dog, we can go out. We have not been ordered in a lockdown. Now, that could very well change. And I think there's a lot of questions swirling about what you can do outside. A lot of people very upset that there was a lot of folks hanging out at the beach, that there was a lot of people congregating or just packed onto boardwalks and things like that. And the mayor of San Diego this weekend closed access to the beach parking lots in places like Ocean Beach and Pacific Beach. We're watching some of those moves take place. Fiesta Island was cut off, a lot of hiking trails cut off. So we're going to try to gather all those things together and give specific guidance about what you can do outside right now. We are in a stay-at-home order, not a shelter-in-place. Those are very different. We're not locked down like some of these other places in Europe or in, say, the Bay Area and other places. Now, if they can't control it, we could be very well headed towards that same level of lockdown where we cannot go outside. We had not entered that yet. A couple of pieces of breaking news. I was devastated to hear this morning that after 72 years, the entire staff of the San Diego Magazine, we've been featured. I've written in that magazine several times, and the chief content officer, Aaron Chambers Smith, is on our board of directors. After 72 years, the San Diego Magazine has laid off its entire staff and closed, at least for now. The owner, Jim Fitzpatrick of San Diego Magazine, says he hopes that will change, that they will be able to relaunch at some point and hire everybody back. But for now, they're all laid off, and that was brutal. He said he's not about to let the brand die after this long, so he's determined to fix it, but there are only a couple of people on staff there. This was a really interesting bit of news for us to get today, so I had to meet with our board of directors. Voice of San Diego is a nonprofit, so that means that there's nobody that actually owns Voice of San Diego. It is a public trust in a way. It's a 501c3, so we have a board of directors, and this is a really interesting moment for me. We have 15 employees. I'm trying to make sure that everybody gets through this period with their jobs and livelihoods intact. And so that means we're going to have to raise money. We have money in the bank, but over the next year, we're going to have to really prove to people that we're a relevant service, that they need to keep funding in this community. And so if that moves you, please consider it. But Voice of San Diego, the staff has really done a lot to make sure that they're covering relevant things right now, make sure they're not being redundant to other news sources out there, and to also make sure we don't forget about the other issues that we're still covering in San Diego that still matter and are juiced in a way by what's happening with the coronavirus situation. Okay, another bit of news that we're following closely. Several leaders in the local Democratic Party have tested positive for the COVID-19 virus and have been in the hospital. So we've talked about Chula Vista City Councilman Steve Padilla, whose condition worsened and he went into the ICU. And we still haven't had another update since he went into the ICU. Everybody, of course, hoping that he's able to recover. But then the news came that Will Rodriguez Kennedy, the chairman of the San Diego Democratic Party, also went to the hospital, also went to an ICU, also tested positive for the COVID-19 coronavirus. And then we got the news that Kelvin Barrios is one of the two council candidates running to replace Georgette Gomez on District 9 of the San Diego City Council. Kelvin Barrios also tested positive, also went to the hospital, but has gone home and is recovering at home right now. He says it's been the worst flu type thing that he's ever dealt with, but he seems like he's recovering. But he did also report on social media that it appears that his girlfriend has it now, and so his travails continue with that. We wish him and all of the people struggling with this their best, but I think all of them have the same message. This is nasty, and this is a very difficult disease for even young people like them to get over. And so take this seriously is the message that they're all bringing out. Again, Steve Padilla, still in the hospital, haven't had an update. Will Rodriguez Kennedy, the chairman of the Democratic Party locally, we just got a message that he's not taking calls on behalf of the Democratic Party right now because of how serious his condition is and how much he needs to spend working to improve it and recovering. And he's been in the hospital. And then Kelvin Barrios, one of the city council candidates, we've heard about several others. I don't know what the definition of a cluster is, but it sure seems like the local Democratic Party is dealing with something severe as politicians. There was a lot of talk on social media about Rand Paul, how weird it was that an elite like him got tested, even though he hadn't been, showing any signs of any symptoms of coronavirus, but he still got tested. Look, politicians, I think they all should be tested because they're out there shaking hands. They're out there. They're most socially networked people that exist. It makes sense to me that they all should be tested. And it looks like we're seeing here local politicians with a prevalence for this. We also have breaking news. Mayor Kevin Faulkner of the city of San Diego has just announced that Golden Hall. Golden Hall is where the original Comic Con was. It's right next to City Hall downtown. Big. We always have Election Central there. It looks kind of like a half gymnasium, half auditorium. Big building right there next to City Hall in downtown San Diego. It's been outfitted now with 240 homeless beds, and they also announced that the convention center where Comic-Con exists now, will actually be converted to temporarily house homeless people as well. There are now almost 2,000 hotel rooms set aside for homeless people. You can see what's happening here. They're trying to get people off the street and isolated, especially if they test positive for this nasty virus. That's a fascinating development. What a change for the convention center to go from being the heart of our economic future. They were just, Measure C was just on the ballot to raise the hotel room tax so we could expand the convention center and make it something that would generate revenue far into the future and also help the homeless people. And now it's being used literally to help the homeless people as a building, as a facility, because that's the situation we've gotten into. How many homeless people are there? I don't actually have that number handy. I'll see if I can't get it before I hang up today. So what an incredible announcement, really. The mayor said this will be the centerpiece. The convention center will be the centerpiece of our fight against the coronavirus. There's no higher or better use. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, who's really stood out as a voice from the county supervisors. Again, let me just distinguish here. I think this gets lost. The county is separate from the city of San Diego. The county has 5 county supervisors. Nathan Fletcher is one of them. He helps run this subcommittee that they set up to deal with the coronavirus. That's separate from Mayor Kelvin Faulkner, who is the mayor of the city of San Diego, one of 18 cities within the county. The county, the 5 board of supervisors, oversees the county's government, and the county government is in charge of public health, which is why they have an outsized voice on everything that's happening right now. So if they say like, hey, we can't congregate, or hey, the beaches need to be closed, then the mayor and the city is what actually does some of the specific logistical efforts to close beaches or whatever. So that's kind of how the interplay is there. For instance, if homeless people go to the convention center, the city probably handles the logistics of that, but the county provides maybe the healthcare or other public health needs around that. So that's how that kind of works. Supervisor Fletcher announced that the county has 1,954 hotel and motel rooms set aside to isolate homeless people who are either being tested or test positive for the COVID-19 virus. There's a lot of talk about the homeless crisis. Okay, local government. We did a lot of stories today about the city. What's really interesting, the city and the county are agencies that not only have to respond to this crisis, that they're literally being taxed and burdened with services far beyond what they're normally used to. At the same time, they're also facing incredible financial problems because of it. So the city of San Diego, for example, expects about 10% of its revenue to come from hotel room taxes that people pay. Well, there's nobody staying in hotel rooms now, so it's not hard to picture a 10% knock on their city finances right away. And so that's just brutal for a city to experience, and the kind of thing we're going to expect. There's a lot going on. Mayor Kelvin Faulkner has announced microloans. Again, that's money that the city's going to have to come up with. One of our reporters also found this weekend that, yes, San Diego is facing a shortage of medical equipment, basic supplies like gloves, goggles, gowns, masks. Currently, medical supplies are coming from state and national stockpiles. Governor Gavin Newsom said the federal government pledged to send more equipment. So that's one thing we're going to be tracking. Again, I read that quote from Mario Calabresi, the former editor of La Repubblica newspaper in Italy, who said, again, don't waste time. In the blink of an eye, protective face masks, gloves, and hand sanitizers become a rare and unobtainable commodity. This is right from the ground in Italy, where people are dealing with that. So we're going to be watching closely the local supplies of these kinds of things. Our frontline medical and healthcare staff are our most valuable soldiers in this fight right now, and they cannot be getting sick, because that would be a horrible impact. Okay, one thing we followed up on, Maya Sri Krishnan was interested in how this might be affecting the census. The census is more important than ever. We need to be able to count people where they're at. Public agencies and community groups have engaged in a major push to make sure that people participate. Mailers went out. Organizers plan to use the phone more than they might have before, and that's important to make sure that they can be represented in the census count. Now, the census matters because if we have fewer people in San Diego counted than we might have, then that means that we'll have less support from the government, from the federal government. We'll get fewer funds, all kinds of things like that. So if you get a census form, fill it out. You have some time. This is an important thing to be doing. Okay, we were also focused this weekend on politics and how this might affect local politics over the summer. Think about it. Local politics is all built on these fundraisers, on coffees that people have, on all these different groupings that they do, speeches. Well, that's all out. So we're going to be focusing and trying to understand how that changes campaigns again. All right, so I'm seeing some questions come in about the border. Check out our border report. Maya Sri Krishnan should be putting that out later today. She's been following up. Obviously, it's a big day for the border report. The border has been closed to non-essential travel. So that is a huge change. Obviously, our economy is interdependent. This is one big region with Tijuana and Baja California. So check that out. Our border report comes out every other Monday. And every other Monday after that is the environment report. We also do the North County report on Wednesdays, the environment or the education report, the learning curve on Thursdays. A lot of questions right now about what the future of education. We're seeing in some districts that are getting remote right away, that are plugging in with people to make sure that they can get access to continue their education while this stay-at-home order exists. And there's other districts that have punted that discussion, at least for now, and we have no idea what's going to happen or how much progress. A lot of them cite the issue of equity, that they can't make sure everybody gets equal opportunity to these resources, and so they end up they say, well, we can't give anybody anything if we can't make sure that everybody gives everything. And so there's a lot of question about internet access we're researching right now, and what it would take to make sure that people can learn from home, because if we're going to lose a year of schooling, what does that do long-term to hurt the kids' education? So I have a question come in. When will San Diego Unified give an update on school closures? LA extended their closure date until May. So the official word from San Diego Unified is that they will remain closed till April 6th and then reopen. Obviously, that's a 99% chance that that's not happening, but they have not updated about what they're going to do. I thought it was interesting. LA Unified and San Diego Unified released a joint press release today calling on the state to give them a kind of bailout to help them with all their needs and the things they want to do. And LA Unified requested $100 million or cited $100 million they're spending to make sure that kids get connected to the internet and have the devices they need so they can learn remotely. San Diego Unified did not say that that's something that they're going to be doing. So that's an important thing to follow. We are very interested, in me in particular, about how our kids are going to continue learning if they're stuck in these situations. I have another question that came in, said, elaborate on the different levels of quarantine, self-isolation, shelter in place, etc. Okay, there's basically two right now. One is stay at home versus shelter in place. Shelter in place means you stay in your house. You cannot be outside at all unless you're like heading to the hospital or getting something essential done. That is the case right now in say Spain and Italy, you cannot go outside. There's a viral video going around of these mayors in Italy yelling at people who are playing ping pong and stuff out in the streets. We do not have that right now. It's basically like a 200 euro fine in Spain if you're out on the streets. That is not the situation we're in. We're in a so-called stay-at-home order, not a shelter-in-place order. If that stay-at-home order changes to a shelter-in-place in San Diego, that means you can't leave your house. That's not the case, but there's a lot of problems, of people congregating on the beach and in boardwalks and kind of ignoring or playing basketball or whatever. And so, that's not going to help our argument that we should still be allowed to get outside. This is going to be, as you well know, far more intolerable if we're not allowed to get outside. If I'm not allowed to surf and stuff like that. I surfed this weekend. I was shocked by one thing. There was not as many people as there might normally be, but there was far fewer people fishing off the pier in Ocean Beach, and I thought that was kind of fascinating. Maybe they had the right idea, but I don't know, if you're not able to experience the outdoors here, it makes living around here a lot more difficult. So I understand why people want to get out, but stay away from other people, or else we might all lose the chance to get out. Now, the trajectory of what we saw in Italy and in Spain looks like the same trajectory we're on in California. So I would not be surprised if our stay-at-home order shifts to a shelter in place, which means we can't go outside. So I hope that doesn't happen. Is it surprising daycares aren't closed? I think most have closed. From what I understand, there are a few that have remained open. They are considered essential. And so we'll see how long that lasts. I know that a lot of them are having trouble getting access to resources. There is no update. There's no update yet from the county about when the next level of closures might occur. Okay. I think that's about all I wanted. I know, I'm sorry, I keep my hands, keep touching my face. I don't think my face has ever itched more in my life. I walk around and I'm always trying not to rub it, but it sure does feel like I should. Just an update again on Voice. We've got reporters out covering all these things, from schools to the healthcare situation to the stuff that still matters. Even more in some cases, that's not necessarily coronavirus related. And so they're out trying to make sure. We had this board meeting today, and basically all decided, look, this is our chance. We're either going to be relevant as a news organization, or we're going to be victims, as a lot of other organizations are, to the climate. And so everybody's fired up and doing great investigative and explanatory work. That's our role. We either explain things or we find things out that people don't want us to find out. Those are the two things. And explaining is important. There's so much complexity in local public policy that it serves as a kind of elitism. And so to me, it's an effort to decipher all that and make sure people understand the difference between the county or the city. I think one thing that's happening right now, for example, is there's every city government has these giant pension plans, these giant funds where the employees contribute to it, the employer, the taxpayer contributes to it, and then they invest all that money, and in that investment they make enough. They're supposed to make enough to pay everybody's benefits out into the future. But if the market is tanking, and by all accounts 10, 20, 30%, that means that the employer and the employee have to put in more, and that means taxpayers have to put in more to make those pensions work, which means that it puts an incredible strain on local governments like the city of San Diego and like the county of San Diego. Our reporter Ashley McGlone's got a story coming about all these budgets, and we have this really interesting situation where the city of San Diego, for example, gets so much more of its money from state, from sales taxes and from tourism taxes, both of which will be very tumultuous because of what's happening. And so they're going to face the city of San Diego is going to face a dramatic fall in its revenues from these sources of dollars from sales taxes and from tourism taxes. Now you might say, well, people are buying a bunch of stuff. Well, a lot of things that they buy aren't taxable, like food or diapers, things like that. So, that's not necessarily going to help those city budgets. On the other hand, the county of San Diego is funded in large part by property taxes, which should remain relatively stable. They can't go up or down very fast. And so the county also has a gigantic reserve of money compared to other agencies. So the county of San Diego, which is more in charge of things like public health, they should be able to do they should be able to step up to the occasion. Another agency that's probably better off than others, ironically, is the Airport Authority. Airport Authority has a lot more money than its annual costs. It's been building up a lot. It gets money from airlines that pay to have their spot at the airport, and they have airfare taxes. And so all that money is ready to be invested in the new Terminal 1 revitalization. So we'll see if those kinds of big projects are going to still continue or not, even though the airlines, of course, are experiencing a major correction and difficult one. So these are the kinds of things that we're following locally. Voice of San Diego's here, your voice. We want to hear from you, especially if you're a healthcare provider right now. Are you getting the supplies you need? Are you getting the information you need? Are you seeing things that aren't being reported? Let us know. We will make sure that link to get a hold of us is available. We have a survey for healthcare providers. Also, if you want to just reach me directly, you can at scott@voiceofsandiego.org. That's scott@voiceofsandiego.org. And you can send me a note, and I can connect you with ways to communicate more securely if you'd like as well. You can also get us at info@voiceofsandiego.org, and we should be able to hear anything. We want to hear from you. We also want to hear from businesses that are struggling right now. If you're one month away from going insolvent, again, we just talked about San Diego Magazine laid off its entire staff of 37 employees, except for a couple of accountants that are kind of wrapping things up. If you're like them and right on the edge, you need a bridge loan, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story so that we can make sure that plight is not lost. There's got to be, we all have to band together. Now, look, I know everybody is scared. I wake up every morning and take a breath as I realize what's happening around the world after sleeping for a little while, and realize, the challenge we have to keep an organization going, the challenge we have to keep our kids educated, and all of the things that are going on. But this is a time also to be together, to help each other out, to take care of ourselves. Because there is a way to get through this, and this should provide a lot of us with purpose, because if we get through this together, imagine the parties we can have, imagine the parades we can have, imagine when our bars open back up and our beaches are packed again. We can get there, but this is about sticking together right now and remembering our purpose. So whatever organization you're trying to save, whatever family you're trying to save right now, whatever you need to do to take care of yourself and save yourself, we all understand, we're all with you. And Voice of San Diego is going to be here the whole way to help keep you connected to information and to help you understand what the next steps are and what the governments and what the businesses are going to be dealing with. So stay tuned, and thank you all for your support. And let me know if you'd like to, if you have any other things we should follow up on. Again, you can always email me at scott@voiceofsandiego.org. Thank you.